Good morning, this is Keisha Spivey, and I am bringing you your Friday Fire. I had so many things bouncing around in my mind that I wanted to talk about this week, but the Lord took me back to a message that I ministered on Sunday, and it's from a very familiar verse of set of scriptures. We're actually talking through Matthew 9, and we're talking through all the encounters people had with Jesus and the miracles that he performed. And of course, we came upon one of my absolute favorite stories in the Bible, and it's the woman with the issue of blood. And again, it's Matthew 9, I believe it's verses 20 through like 22 or something like that, where you can read it. It's just a couple of scriptures, but she's one of my favorite stories because we can all relate. The woman in the text had an issue of blood, but if we're all honest, every one of us have an issue of something. And there are a couple of things I want to pull out this morning that I hope will motivate you and to help you look at her and your situation a little bit differently. Number one, the woman with an issue, she had a fixed focus. In those few verses, she was not talking about the last 12 years of her life and all that she'd spent and all the pain and the loneliness and the sadness. Her focus was on one thing: if I can just touch Jesus. It wasn't about what she'd been through. It wasn't about what she'd had to overcome. It wasn't about her struggles. It was about what was waiting on the other side. The second thing that she had was a made-up mind. Again, she said, if I but touch. Her mind was made up that she had one focus, and that was touching Jesus. It was not brushing past him. It wasn't breezing by him. It wasn't a haphazard acquaintance or connection. It was she set out to touch him. See, the problem is a lot of us are brusher-uppers of Jesus. We brush up occasionally on a Sunday, or we brush up when our back is up against the wall. But how many of you are reaching out to touch him? What area in your life do you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he can touch, he can change, he can transform if you make the decision to reach out and touch him? And the third thing I want to mention is she had a fierce faith. A fierce faith. So often we read that and we think about what Jesus did. However, in that text, Jesus didn't do anything. He literally turned around and told her, your faith has made you whole. And what I like about that is it's a great equalizer, because every single one of us have been given the measure of faith. The question is, what are you doing with it? Are you stretching it? Are you working it out? Every man has been given the faith that they need. And when you come into a personal relationship with Jesus, you got to realize the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives on the inside of you, but you got to have the faith to work that. You got to believe that. You got to stand on that. No matter what winds are blowing, no matter what's going on around you, you got to have a fierce faith. When you think about this and you think about this text, all this woman did is she turned her excuses into her reasons. She allowed what could have kept her captive and a prisoner in her own life to be the reason, the motivation to reach out, to step out, to do and to go against the odds in faith, believing that this could be the day of her miracle. I know in the past she'd been disappointed. I know in the past doctors told her one thing. I know in the past she had her hopes up, but she had a resolve within her that that day things were subject to change. And one of the things I love about my God is he specializes in the suddenlies. Doesn't matter how long you've struggled with the thing. Doesn't matter how long you've had to deal with this particular issue or this situation. God is no respecter of persons, and he's also no respecter of time. He can speak, or you can touch him, and everything is subject to change. So instead of sitting around complaining and being upset about your situations and some of the issues that you are facing, why not get fired up and turn it into a fierce faith that moves you to action? Not because you're so good, but because he's so good. And not because you've done everything right. Because of what he's done, you are now the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. So I want you to think about that woman and her issue. And then I want you to switch the script and think about you and your issue. What could happen if you invited Jesus in? What could happen if you changed up your approach and you aimed to touch him? What if you allowed his word to begin to touch the inner parts of your heart and your mind? What if you allowed it to start directing your steps and your actions? What could change for you? The woman with the issue was made healthy and whole in one touch. What can happen if you choose to reach out and touch him? So that's my fire for you today. Do something. Move. Stop making excuses. Get about your Father's business. Quit complaining. Quit whining. And start taking action. Because faith without works is dead. It's time to move. It's time to do something. It's time to believe. Have an amazing day and have a wonderful weekend. God bless you, and I'll see you next Friday.